I am in my fuzzy Christmas sweater because it is time to go over all of the new release, fluffy, adorable Christmas romance books for 2022. Grab a cup of cocoa because it is about to get so wholesome. First up on my list is a romance with a little bit of magical realism, a little bit of fantasy elements, and that is Just Like Magic by Sarah Hogle. So this story starts out with kind of a riches to rags situation. We have our main character who is used to living a life of luxury until her parents cut her off one day. Only in order to maintain her social media presence, she continues to pretend that she lives this really fancy life with like private jets and mansions, when in reality she is legitimately squatting in a random house. So she's feeling all this pressure, right, to live up to the standards that she's set for herself on social media, as well as her family's expectations. And one night, she is, you know, hanging out, sipping a little wine, listening to some Christmas records, when she ends up playing the song All I Want for Christmas Is You backwards on her record player. And this actually summons a like magical Christmas spirit, like an actual man who is a holiday spirit, and his name's Hal. And so he is going to make all of her Christmas wishes come true by pretending to be her fiance. Only of course she's going to end up falling in love with him. Next up we have Meet Me Under the Mistletoe by Jenny Bayliss. Jenny Bayliss has actually already written a couple of Christmas romances. She's written The 12 Dates of Christmas and A Season for Second Chances. So if you liked either of those, you should check out Meet Me Under the Mistletoe. This one in particular sounds really cute to me because the tagline says, a city bookshop owner heads to the English countryside for a holiday reunion only to face her childhood enemy. Okay, listen, literally any one of those tropes by itself would be enough to make me read this book. But when you lump them all together, this is like a guaranteed read for me. Okay, this next one is called A Cat Cafe Christmas by Codi Gary. If you have never heard of a cat cafe, let me just tell you, it is a place where you can go and like hang out and get coffee, just like, you know, a Starbucks or whatever. But instead, there are all these cats running around that you can just like hang out and play with and cuddle, and it's just meant to be like a very soothing, calming experience. I have always wanted to go to one of these, but I have not yet been able to. So I figured the next best thing would be to read a book, a Christmas book in particular, set in a cat cafe. So the premise of this book is basically that our main character is a veterinarian and she owns and runs this cat cafe, only they're having some major financial issues. Enter our love interest, who is a snazzy businessman, but our main character doesn't really like him as a person. But she realizes that she needs his help because he has come up with a plan to save the cat cafe by Christmas. So even though they don't really like each other, they're having to team up as business partners. Only of course, inevitably, they're going to fall in love. Our next book probably has one of the most unique premises on this list. It has a lot of really interesting, like low-key fantasy elements in it, and that is Once Upon a December by Amy E. Reichart. This book is giving me a lot of night circus vibes, but make it Christmas. So basically, this is about a magical Christmas market named Jewel Market that magically appears in a different city every year. Nobody really knows how this works. It just appears, and then when December's over, it disappears again until it reappears again the next year. Only what's actually happening is that for all of the people who live like in the market and who like run all of the shops and stuff, it turns out that this Christmas market is actually just bouncing around time. So it never actually exists during the rest of the year. It just appears during December, and then for the people living inside of it, it seems to just magically skip to the next December. So they never actually get to experience like the rest of the year basically. So we have our love interest, who is one of these people living in the Christmas market. We have our main character, who is a woman who has just gotten divorced, and so she makes a visit to the magical Christmas market to just lift her spirits and get some Christmas cheer, and she ends up meeting this guy who lives at the market, and they end up falling in love. But the kind of twist on that is that, of course, he doesn't exist during the rest of the year. So they have to figure out how to make this relationship work in this weird sort of like time warp situation they find themselves in. If I had to pick one that I'm the most excited about for this year, it would probably be this next one, and that is The Christmas Clash by Suzanne Park. So this is about two kids who have like rival family businesses. It kind of reminded me of a pho love story where the two main characters both have parents who own restaurants in their local mall's food court. So they've always been kind of like rivals with each other. Only one year they find out that a big bad developer is going to come and tear down the mall and turn it into a big building of condos. So they have to put aside their differences and team up for the good of both of their family businesses to try and save the mall by Christmas. This next one is actually also about a family business. It is called Talk Santa to Me by Linda Urban. It is about a young girl who basically lives and breathes her family's holiday store. But one year her aunt actually takes over and kind of becomes in charge of things and starts changing everything. And so our main character is kind of working to try and save all of the memories and the nostalgia that this store offers the community that her aunt is trying to like basically get rid of. Plus, as she's also trying to do all this, she's also trying to figure out a way to get a second chance at her first kiss with the guy who works at the Christmas tree lot right across from them, because apparently their first kiss was a little bit embarrassing. So she's trying to figure out a way to get like a magical Christmas do-over essentially. Okay, so next up, I actually have a few books left over from my TBR last year that were new releases in 2021 that I just didn't quite have time to get to, but they just sound so cute, so I just decided to roll them over to this year's TBR. First up, we have The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcelo. I love this idea because our main character is actually an anonymous book blogger, and she is spending her winter break working part-time at the local inn, which is like super cute and picturesque and was also the location of a famous Christmas movie. So she's basically just having the perfect Christmas until her boss's nephew comes to work at the inn with her, and they do not get along. It sounds like our main character is very type A, and this new kid is just really getting on her nerves. Until one afternoon when they accidentally switch phones with each other, and they start to kind of learn more about each other, and that potentially brings them closer to understanding each other's point of view. Next we have So This Is Christmas by Tracy and Andreen. So basically it is about this girl named Finley who goes to boarding school in this like fancy East Coast like Dead Poet Society boarding school, and she's originally from Oklahoma. And so she thinks that this is just gonna be like the school of her dreams and she's gonna have so much fun, but actually it turns out she ends up struggling a lot because she has a bit of a case of imposter syndrome. She just doesn't really feel like she fits in with all of these really fancy prep school kids who come from these like really wealthy families and have these amazing experiences, and she's just from like a random town in Oklahoma. But the name of this town just happens to be Christmas, Oklahoma. So she hatches a plan. She actually hacks into the like Christmas, Oklahoma city website and changes it up and jazzes things up and makes it look like she comes from one of those like magical, fantastical winter wonderland towns where like everything is just like looks like the North Pole and there's reindeer and snowmen and elves everywhere, to just try and impress her friends. And everything's going fine until she heads back home, and suddenly one of the kids from her school shows up at her town with all of his family. And he's like, yeah, I saw, you know, the town that you were from and you were talking about it and it sounded so cool, so we decided to come here for Christmas. And so now she has to basically create and fabricate this fake Christmas experience for him and his family so that, one, nobody finds out that she's been lying, and two, so that they, you know, have a good Christmas, that she doesn't like ruin their Christmas. But so as she's taking them along to all of these different experiences that she's come up with, of course she and the boy are gonna fall in love. Okay, I love the title of this next book because I love a good pun, and that is I'm Dreaming of a Wyatt Christmas, like the last name Wyatt, and it's by Tiffany Schmidt. Okay, so this book is about a girl named Noelle who is a ballet dancer, and so she's trying to save up to go to this like really famous, fancy dance academy for college. And so to do that, she starts a business as a babysitter, and she really gets lucky one year because one of her clients, their family is going on this like magical winter ski resort trip, and they invite her to come along and like watch the kids while they're there. So they're gonna pay her and she gets to go on a free vacation. So basically she struck like the babysitting lottery. And so everything's going really well until one of the family's older sons actually shows up at the ski resort as a surprise. Like they didn't think that he was going on the trip with them until he like ends up surprising them there. And it turns out he actually is a dancer at the school that Noelle is trying to get into. And so they end up kind of making a bad first impression, but of course, through the Christmas spirit and their shared love of dancing, they're gonna find their way to each other. Okay, and then my last category is books that I actually did read last year that I think you should read this year because they were really good. The first one is Blame It on the Mistletoe by Beth Garrod. And this book, to sum it up, is basically the young adult version of The Holiday. So if you've ever seen that movie with Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz, where like one's in LA and one's in London and they swap homes for the holidays, it is literally just like that, but it's the young adult version. And then the last book in this list is We Met in December by Rosie Curtis. So basically it is about this young woman living in London, and she is kind of at like a quarter life crisis because she has decided kind of late into her 20s that she's totally gonna change her career, and she's actually going to start going into publishing, which is completely new for her. And so she has to like find a place to live in London so that she can pursue her dream. And it turns out that one of her friends has inherited this massive house on Notting Hill. And if you've ever seen that movie, that is just an adorable part of London. It's like a particular district in London with these really cute old houses. And so her friend has invited her to come and live with her, and they have several roommates, one of whom is also kind of having a quarter life crisis because he has gone from being this super prestigious fancy lawyer to now being a like hospice nurse essentially. So his family does not understand this change at all, and he really just feels very confused because he feels like he doesn't really have anybody in his life that understands like why he's doing this. And so then our two main characters meet, and they're basically like in the exact same stage in life, even though like it's not like the timing's not really right. It's one of those like right person, wrong time situations. And so you actually follow them over the course of an entire year from like one December to the next December. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it might be a friends to lovers situation. Okay, that is all of the wholesome, adorable Christmas romance novels that I have to recommend for you today. Please leave your recommendations below for any of these sort of like fluffy, happy, wholesome Christmas romances that you think I should check out. And let me know if there's any way I can be encouraging you or praying for you this week. I know that the holidays can be kind of complicated for a lot of people, so if there's any way I can be praying for you this year, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!